Hi, everyone. Welcome to our very first interview episode of Blah, Blah, Blah with Katee Sackhoff. I am so excited about today's guest. She is seriously a force of nature. She is wonderful. I love her dearly. Miss Bryce Dallas Howard is here, and we are going to get into so much fun stuff. And I can't wait for you to listen to the interview. Enjoy. No way.
With actors in particular, because I'm an actor first and foremost, like my whole job is to be there for the actor. Like that's like really everyone on the set is looking at other things. The only person whose job to really manage the performance is the director. So if you're not engaged in that in a way where you're really supporting the actor with every possibility that they might be feeling, like you're leaving options that you could have available to you on the floor. And
Right.
I have found that I don't typically know the best way to do it, but if I can kind of have a little, almost like a little script analysis moment, like a little like dramaturgy moment where we're just like, okay, so like what's happening in the scene?
Yeah.
Okay, so this person's here, and just sort of like talking through the circumstances and the reality of it and the kind of the real boy of it,
Yeah.
like less Pinocchio, more real boy.
Which you say to me all the time, and I love it. I love it because I understand it.
Do you know who else liked it?
Who?
Jude Law. Oh, I love that.
I was going to ask you about Jude because I want to know, like, can you? I don't want to talk about too much of it because I know you probably can't. But
I'm just happy that I can like say that I
that you actually
directed.
directed. When did you know? Did you get a hand in picking your episode? Do they
No.
tell you which one you're going to do?
Yes.
So how was that experience? Because I met Jude and I was just like, he's wonderful.
He's wonderful. He's wonderful. It was really, really, really exciting to get to work with him because, as you know, like that's my happy place. Like it's just like there's acting happening, you know, and we really got to do some fun stuff together, which was gorgeous. You know, it wasn't just like pew pew pew. So
Yeah.
and that's why. Like, you know, I feel like we've gotten the chance together to sort of do some stuff that has some real depth to it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, you do know that you've worked with like half of the holiday, right? Like between Jack and Jude now.
Yeah.
It's like my favorite Christmas
That's
movie.
true. That's true. Yeah. So now it's just Kate and Cameron.
Yeah,
And then I'm
exactly.
sorted.
And then you're sorted.
I love that movie so much.
They're making another one. I'm so excited.
Really?
That's what I've heard, that they're making like another one, which I kind of want to know what happens to all of them.
I just want to go to that village.
I know. But Eli Wallach won't be in this one, sadly.
Yeah,
I got to work with Eli years ago.
Really?
On the show that I did with Richard Dreyfuss, and he played my grandfather. He was absolutely just a wonderful, wonderful human being.
I knew him a bit because he was he worked with my dad when my dad was really, really, really young, and he was
Really?
very good friends with my grandparents.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, seeing him in a play, like, you know, it feels recently. It wasn't recent.
Yeah,
but,
I know. It feels like yesterday.
Yeah, but it's just, it's amazing when you get to have a relationship with folks who've been doing it their whole life.
Yeah.
And you see kind of what it takes, and you also see what's possible. And it's such a privilege to get to work with actors who are there. My dad says something really interesting where he says, you know, actors is there are professions where you get better and better as you age, and then there are some professions, unfortunately, where there's like a peak moment, you know, having to do with various factors. And he said, what's lovely about actors is that they get better and better.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah.
It's really true because the life experience actually makes you such a better actor.
And the more you do it, the more settled you become, the more things you learn from other people. That's another thing that my dad has said often, where something that he really misses about acting is that he got to experience all the different ways in which stories were told,
Mhm.
how directors approached it differently.
Yeah.
And when you're a director, you're just on your set,
Yeah.
you're not on other people's sets.
Yeah.
And I mean, there are so many things that I have learned that I'm just like, oh, thank God. The silent take
Yeah, the
is
silent take
one of them, which
is
is
one
really
of the
great.
most interesting things. I was taking the silent take on to other jobs where I was like, you do the silent take, and I couldn't explain it right. And I was like, where is Bryce? I need her to explain why we do this.
I don't feel
It's
like I even explain it
it's so
well.
wonderful. But did you always think that you would follow in your dad's footsteps and like become a director? Was that always something you wanted to do even back when you went to school in NYU? Like was your
Yeah.
brain always there?
Yeah. I definitely wanted to, well, I was story obsessed. Like,
Okay.
I was very, very story obsessed, and I loved the world that my dad was in. And so I was very excited to kind of learn more about that world. So
Mhm.
it was kind of like I loved the crew, and I loved the experience of going to the movies and reading and just being totally immersed in my imagination. And so I those two things didn't become one to me until kind of late high school.
Okay.
And I wrote a bunch of stuff, and I directed a bunch of stuff in high school. And then when I was thinking about college and all of that, and obviously had the enormous privilege of being able to go to college, and went to a liberal arts school where I didn't have to pick. I was like, okay, so I'm studying acting, and I'm also gonna get a minor in creative writing,
Right.
and I can take classes at Gallatin where you can, study anything you want. And actually, one of the things that I found, and one of the reasons why later became a teacher and went back to
Yeah.
my
To
alma mater
NYU.
and taught, was because I actually wanted to, in the drama program, I wanted to have more access to filmmaking. And so I think that
As opposed to just the
just
creative
drama,
side, just the drama side of it.
just acting,
Yeah.
it's a little bit because you in order to train for something, you need to specialize.
Yeah.
But if you have, if you're a multi passionate person and you want to study things simultaneously, like that should be a possibility.
Absolutely.
And so it was a little kind of separated, and it was like, okay, the film department is here and the acting department is here, and you don't talk to each other. And
Yeah.
and that's
It's so
weird.
interesting because they actually one makes the other better. Like I do
Totally.
believe that if I know you can't do everybody's job at work, but as long as you know how that job works and how that person is meant to do their job and what it's supposed to look like, and you have respect for that, then you have respect for the entire crew. And it only makes you better at your job because you can take into account what everyone else is needing from you as an actor.
And you can feel instantly when you're working with an actor who has no idea what the crew is doing,
Right.
and they think they're the person who's working the hardest on set.
Oh, that's fun.
And it just sucks. It's really that's always very depressing. The good news is that there's actually not many of them, and folks who kind of intentionally uh, silo themselves and just don't care to know about anyone else's process or needs or accommodations that are required. I think that there's not many people like that, because I don't think you really survive
Not
if you're
anymore.
like that.
I
Yeah.
don't think
I
so.
think
Not in
that's more
today's
old
day and
school.
age. I
Yeah.
think it's hard though, because in my mind, you are like the nicest person I've ever met,
Thank you.
but you also stand up for yourself,
Mm.
which is really interesting. And not a lot of women in this industry. I was not raised that way in this industry. I was raised to be seen and not heard. And
Mhm.
it took me a long time to find my voice.
Mm.
But you strike me as a person who always had that. Is that true? Did you learn that because you're the way you were raised by your parents and that you felt comfortable in this industry? Like, what was that? Or is that?
So again, I feel so comfortable because I know that you're like in control of this
Yeah,
of
yeah,
this.
yeah.
So like if I mention something that based on conversations we've had
Yeah.
that you're not comfortable with, like
Yeah.
obviously. So I don't know,
Yeah.
but and nothing is ever our parents' fault.
Yeah.
And nothing is entirely because of them,
Of course.
you know. But I remember you sharing once about your mom and how beautiful
Mm.
she is
Mhm.
and, was,
Mhm.
and how she would be really very hard on herself
Yeah.
and not feel like she's beautiful and looking. And
Yeah.
specifically, there was a photograph
Yeah.
where she was incredibly beautiful and your age, and she looked exactly like you. And you realized, you were like, oh my God, you've been dissing this
Yeah.
person who looks exactly like me all this time.
It broke my heart. It broke my heart because my mom has always talked so poorly about herself. And I picked up a picture of her when she was about my age now. And I
Mhm.
realized that I look exactly like my mother.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, you've been lying to me for 43 years, telling me that I was so pretty and that I was this and I was that. And it was really hard for me to have that conversation with her, that she can think those things about herself and not see herself in me,
Mhm.
which was so weird.
It is weird.
Yeah.
It is weird. It's weird. It's really complicated. So when you ask me that question,
Yeah.
it's my mom is so unapologetically uh, enchanted with herself,
Wow.
and not in a way that is self-centered.
Yeah.
She's someone who never wears makeup. Let me just tell you a few things about my mom.
Yeah.
So she grew up in poverty
Okay.
and single parent household, and was the oldest of her siblings and really in charge of them.
Yeah.
And she was being raised by her dad. And so she basically like did everything that she could to just be an awesome daughter to him. And that ultimately actually empowered her in a way that was very specific. So she soloed her first plane when she was 16.
That's crazy.
She managed a gun range when she was a teenager.
Wow.
She she cut off all of her hair and joined the football team and had everyone call her Charlie because there weren't any sports other than cheerleading at school.
And she wanted to do something
And
different.
she's super athletic, super, super athletic. And then they found out, like they knocked off her helmet once, and then they were like, hang on. And so the way she responded to that was that she forced the school to start a track team. She was like, listen, if you're not going to let me join football and you're not going to have any other legitimate sports, like, can I just
Can I
throw
do
out
something?
one sport to you?
Huh.
So started the track team. My parents met in high school when they were 16, and they started dating when they were 16. And my grandparents said that my dad's first date with my mom, it was like a sitcom. Like he came back home and he like opened the door and he like stepped through and he goes, now that's a date, because she was just really busy and she had never seen TV. It was a downside to her that my dad was on TV. She thought
Okay.
like, oh, that's weird. Her dad, she cleaned apartments. Like that's like what she would do to make money and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And a lot of the tenants at this apartment that she would clean were actors, and they were all really messy. And so my mom was like, "Oh no,
So she associated that with
she's
your
like,
dad.
this is a problem. Like I'm not cleaning
I'm
up
not
after
cleaning up after you
another
forever."
actor." My dad proposed to her 3 times. She said no.
Wow.
Yeah. She didn't want to get married until she was able to get a degree, because she felt like she needed to be able to support our family, because acting was so unpredictable.
Yeah.
And so, she's a really different kind of person. You know, her constitution is quite fierce and very she's very supportive of her, like, who she is.
Yeah.
And it's not because she wasn't raised by her mom, it's not connected to her looks at all.
At all. It's not
Like,
grounded in like grounded in the feminine.
At all. To a degree that is sometimes a little detrimental.
Yeah.
But it's so I, like, when I was a kid, I used to look in the mirror a lot. And my mom, that freaked her out because she was like, okay, she's a cute little girl and everyone's telling her that she's cute and now she's looking in the mirror. So where is this going to lead to? And so she covered up all the mirrors in the house for a long time.
Wow. Like,
Covered them up with
interesting.
sheets.
With sheets.
Because she was just like, nope, we're just going to nip
That's not
this
what
in the
it's going
bud.
to happen.
Nope.
Interesting.
You're not falling in love with a
What do you do when you're
reflection.
little? How does that internalize to a child?
Whatever.
Yeah.
But I was not kind of like a typical kid in that way. And so I was like,
I guess
okay,
this is what we're
then I
doing
look
now.
over here. Yeah, I guess this is what we're doing now,
Okay.
you know?
Yeah.
But she was very, she really wanted us to develop character. That was the thing that she would always talk about. And character translated to me as personality. Personality translated as how you navigate the world, how you are in the world. Yeah. I have a very difficult time advocating for myself if there isn't a higher purpose. Like there's a phrase that I love to say that I learned from a makeup artist I worked with named Vivian Baker, and the phrase is, "My loyalty is to the screen." So if there's like a situation on set and there's like someone's like, butt hurt about something and you just think to yourself, listen, my loyalty is to the screen. And so if what I'm doing is actually in service of the movie, in service of the vision or, the show or whatever it is, then I can kind of set that aside because my loyalty and my mission is to the screen.
To the screen.
And so I think that if it's something where it's like, my trailer bathroom is broken, could someone fix it? Like I would more likely get a plunger myself.
Yeah, I was going to say I would probably go use the one on stage.
1,000%.
Yeah.
But if it's just like, this coverage is going to not be usable.
Yeah.
If we don't pause for 5 minutes and make an adjustment to this light.
Yeah.
I know there's pressure, but there's a larger thing here.
Yeah.
That when you are in the position of being in charge,
right,
you need to make some of those calls.
Yeah.
It gets into very murky, intense terrain when you need to advocate for yourself as an example for others.
Yeah.
That's when it gets really tricky, where it's like, listen, I don't care that like I don't have a bathroom that's working and like I walk to here or whatever and it's been that way for 2 months. Like, listen, I'm fine. That's okay.
Yeah.
But my friend over here, she actually uses a prosthetic and she can't walk that distance.
Yeah.
And what you're making the space impossible for her to work.
Yeah.
And so this is about accessibility. This is not about me being upset about like the bathroom not being fixed. This is about like everyone needs the bathroom to work. Because some folks can't actually do the thing that they need to do in order to get the job done. So,
but I noticed that like on set, when you have conversations with Jon Favreau, it is now, did you know him before Mando?
Only a little bit, not very much.
Yeah.
Not very much.
Your relationship with him is so honest, but respectful.
Oh my God, I love him
I
so much.
noticed that at work that you two, more than any other directors I've seen on set, actually have the ability to have conversations, not necessarily agree in every instance, but you are always respectful of each other. And I've really, really learned a lot from watching that.
Oh, thank you.
But because it feels like you are doing that thing where it's always in the service of what's on screen.
Yeah. Now, as you well know, but I'll just say this for anyone who hasn't had the enormous privilege of working with Jon Favreau, he is a genius, but more than a genius, he's one of the greatest humans I've ever encountered.
Agreed.
And so I realized early on working on Mandalorian, I had kind of an aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized, you need to if you want to plan your life, you need to pick the right boss.
Yeah.
And if you pick the right boss, like that's a good metric of success, you know? And sometimes you don't necessarily think about that. You're like, oh, how long is it? Like, am I going to be able to like use these skills?
Yeah.
Like, am
so
I
many other things come into
play, but it's just like, who specifically am I serving? Whose mission am I on? Who is my boss? And so having a leader, like even more than a boss, because he doesn't walk around like that.
No.
Having a leader like John is so incredibly freeing and empowering because there is no fear.
Yeah.
He's not like, you can be completely honest and critical and real with him.
Yeah.
And he does not take it personally.
No.
He just wants to hear. He wants to listen. Like he is wonderful. And I feel so lucky to be mentored by and to work for someone who is like that.
Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast journey. I have a special announcement. We're going to be at San Diego Comic-Con at the American Comedy Company on July 22nd from 4 to 6 p.m. And I can't wait. I'm going to be doing a live podcast, and the raw footage from that show will be exclusive to those at the event. I'm going to do some meet and greets, and I look forward to seeing all of you there. But don't worry, if you can't make it to San Diego, I have a website dedicated to this podcast, BlahBlahBlahKatee.com. If you head over there, you will see you can get tickets for the in-person event, but we're also going to be live streaming the event, and you guys will have the opportunity to join me in the car ride home from the event right after. I'm going to be answering questions from you all, recapping what we just did. I'm sure it's going to be nuts. We want to give this a try and see how you like it, see how we like it, and who knows? I don't know. Maybe we'll do it again. But we just thought that Comic-Con would be a great time to do it for the first time, and we hope that you will join us. So head over to BlahBlahBlahKatee.com and you can get your tickets right now. Now, go.
I wanted to do a quick shout out to Brian Ward for doing all the graphics for this podcast. We really appreciate him. And thanks for helping us establish the look. You went to NYU. You started acting a little bit before, but it was literally just little small parts in your dad's movies.
Not even. I was my mom, because they were together since they were 16, as a superstition. My mom had been, and she's not an actor. She's never acted or anything like that.
No, she's like, she doesn't want to clean up after him.
Exactly. But it like says online that she's an actor and she's not.
Oh, does it really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Just because of this. So he's had her be in the background of every single thing that he shot.
Really?
And so it's like a superstition thing. And she is not lines or anything like that, but just like in the background. And so when I was 7 years old, my dad was doing Parenthood, and there were all these kids on set, and it was a very kid-friendly set.
Yeah.
And I was allowed to be in the background. And so I was in the background for a couple movies, but I had never actually, like, typically on set, my thing was I was always allowed to have a job on set. And it started with like squeezing orange juice when I was 6, 7 years old. And just like being probably a huge burden.
Was it because you wanted to be there?
Oh,
like
yeah. All I wanted to do was to be on set.
Was be on set.
And when I would be grounded, they would ground me from set because that was the only thing that was effective.
They were taking away everyone else's Game Boys, and you were like, you can't go to work.
I didn't care about Game Boys. Yeah. I cared about
squeezing orange juice.
Exactly. And so I had various little jobs ongoingly to sort of justify getting to be in that environment.
Yeah.
And what was very consistent was that the most important thing was to keep me away from the actors, because I was like a child and a distraction for my dad, you know? And so I was always doing stuff that was really connected to the crew, but not connected to the actors.
Okay.
And so that's kind of like how I came up, and therefore had a really, like, a very specific relationship to movie making. Like, it had to do with production.
So how did you end up at Tisch then? When was it? When did you decide that I want to be an actor?
I followed one of my really good friends. I would follow her from like camp to camp. And she was very, like, is a very interesting person, and really brilliant. And she went to like an academic camp in Vassar, and I'm like, so am I. I'm going there too, you know. And
Did you ever find yourself at a camp where you were like, "What the hell am I doing here?"
no. I'm game for anything. I'm game for anything. I really am. But she went to Stage Door Manor, so I went to Stage Door Manor, which is like a performing arts summer camp. And I was in Midsummer Night Dream with Natalie Portman.
Yes.
And Natalie was, at that time, she'd done Beautiful Girl, she'd done Mars Attack, she'd done like all these movies, The Professional. But she was going to public school in Long Island. And then during the summer, she was going to a performing arts camp. Like, God bless her parents for keeping her life so incredibly normal. And I remember so when we did this, I was Helena and she was Hermia, which was really fun. And I remember at the end of camp, I was like, "Oh, Natalie, I hope you get to work with my dad someday." And she went, "I hope I get to work with you someday."
Oh,
and it was the first time that it occurred to me. It was the first time that it occurred to me that I could be an actor.
Look at Natalie propping up other people, like even back
Age
then.
15.
I mean, age 15, she's like already like a force.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
She would like her 16th birthday. I will never forget this. This is the first time I'd ever seen this. Her 16th birthday, like, invitation, so fun, like totally like
normal 16-year-old
like
girl.
normal birthday, except for one thing. In lieu of gifts, please donate to.
I would have never done that.
Like, she's just like, normal party, just please, no gifts.
Just that
I'm
person.
Like, how are you that person?
How are you that person
How
already?
Are you that person?
Right,
I mean,
right.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful, and like really set. I mean, at least for me, like definitely set an example. Because I wasn't saying in lieu of gifts.
No, I was like, maybe I say it now, but only because I already have 2 toasters. Like, you know what I mean? Like, please, we don't need the gifts.
I know.
Okay, so Natalie puts it in your head.
She puts it in
my
head at 16. And so then I went to public school in New York, and I got really into drama, like very, very into drama. And my drama teacher was serious, like one of those like very serious drama teachers, where it's sort of like a life or death situation.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to make you fear the theater.
It's like, it's heavy duty. And like, there are things that she taught me that I will like never forget as long as I live, because it's like,
because it's like ingrained in you at this point.
And like nerve-wracking. But it was a very involved theater program because of that.
At high school?
In high school.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And so I got to like lean way into that, and kind of the combo of like summers at Stage Door, and then just being very, like, I remember going to her every year to ask her how she wanted me to cut my hair so that I was prepared.
In high school?
Yes. Because I wanted little baby bangs, and I asked her, and she said no, that it wouldn't be right.
So you were like really, like, you were committed.
I was so committed.
That's amazing.
But I was very committed in high school to everything. I was the president of 12 clubs. Like, I was very...
That doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me. Like, balancing all of these things all at the same time.
Well, but I also had, like, there wasn't a social life. Like, that was my social life. Like, that's what's fun and wonderful.
Yeah.
And there's like a project, and it's great. And so she was, Mrs. Varley, she was very, very, very empowering to me. And, but writing still was more kind of the thing that I was constantly doing. And so that's why when I was applying to schools, specifically NYU was a focus because I would be able to get a liberal arts education. And then the summer between high school and college, I interned at Vanity Fair because I wanted to see what it would look like to be a professional writer.
Right.
My mom's a novelist.
Okay.
I know how much work she puts in and how much money she makes. Yeah, I was like,
I know. Yeah.
that's
you
not
see
necessarily
that.
viable.
Yeah.
But it's but you know, if you're writing if you're a staff writer on a magazine, like what does that look like?
What does that look like? And did you hate it
I
or
loved
just
it.
you loved it?
It
So
was
how did
great.
you love it and then end up where you're at?
I mean, I like,
Because you still write. You have your
Yeah.
you have your column that you write.
well, I mean, that's like, yeah, I mean, I still, there's a lot, like if I died tomorrow, there's like a lot of pages that
Really?
people better find. Yeah.
Are we ever gonna see
Yeah.
it?
I don't
Are
know.
we ever gonna get to
I don't know.
see anything?
I mean, some stuff for sure.
Yeah.
Some stuff. Seth has something waiting in his inbox right now that he has
Does
to read
he?
for
Because
me. Yeah.
I read your column, or
Oh.
because so your production company, Nine Muse Entertainment, you have the Nine Muse Lab that you're doing, which is, and this is one of the things I want to talk about. One of the things that I love so much about you, that there's very few women that I've met in this industry that take it upon themselves to prop other people up. Instead of, they have this thing of, well, I worked so hard, therefore you shouldn't, you know, I want to see you struggle as much as I did. You're the opposite. And that is, you've made me feel that. And now you're giving it to other people, which I love with the Nine Muse Lab. I really think it's amazing that you think that because of the privilege that you've had, that you were born into, that you decided to, you know, go into a career that your family helped you understand, that you were given the benefit of that and you want to give that to other people.
Because it is so unwieldy and so crazy, and so many people are taken advantage of, specifically in that period of time when you are an emerging artist and you're getting into the industry and you're just getting your start. And for me, I had some very lucky breaks that were genuine lucky breaks. Like, people didn't know the connection to my dad or anything like that.
Right.
But I also knew how to navigate them.
Yeah.
And I could always ask advice, like always. And having that support and that knowledge, also even just people knew that they couldn't lie to me about stuff.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, this, like, movie's my
Because
first
you
language.
knew it all.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm fluent.
Yeah.
Like,
And not only that, you don't really want to piss off your dad.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so those, like, it's almost like the idea of being a part of a union.
Yeah.
You know, you have
Absolutely.
protection.
You
It's
have
like,
protection.
you know, for protection. Like,
Yeah.
it's like truly that. And so I hope that gesture wasn't like incredibly disrespectful. It might have been.
We'll edit it out.
I'm gonna go Google it afterwards.
We'll
like,
put a picture over it.
no, maybe not. Maybe not. But I had that, and I felt that, and I saw that, and it impacted the decisions I made. It impacted the degree of my hustle. It impacted where I hustled. Like, it was all of that. And so I as a teacher, going back to NYU and teaching, it was just so abundantly clear that, like, kind of nothing had changed.
Yeah.
And what I'm finding now, and what I'm hoping I can you know, facilitate in some way, is that there are so many resources out there. I just had I'm an Academy member, and I had an incredible meeting with the Academy just a couple of days ago. And it was wonderful because I got to learn about all of the programming that exists.
I didn't realize there's programming.
So
I've
much
been in the
programming.
union since 1994.
Yes,
I have
yes.
no idea.
Yeah, well, there's programming for SAG after.
For SAG,
Yes,
and then the
and then the Academy.
Right.
But it's programming not for Academy members. Like, it's available for emerging artists, available for artists at their like mid-level career.
Really?
Yes.
I
yes.
had no idea.
I remember I had a time in my life where I really needed advice. I mean, I always need advice on this, but I really needed advice, financial advice.
Yeah.
And because the profit margin is a little insane.
I don't think people realize that we take home a fifth of our paychecks. It's very little that we take home.
They don't realize that. And
inside and outside of the industry.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so I really needed advice. And I remember My parents don't like talking to me about money, and they never want to give me advice about anything because they're just like, we don't want to risk giving you advice, and then it's like turns
And
out
then it doesn't
badly,
work
and
out.
like, and
As opposed
like,
to my dad who will, listen, you want advice on anything and not even ask for it. It's my dad.
unsolicited advice.
Unsolicited. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually what my dad always says. He's like, I don't want to give you unsolicited advice. I'm like, I'm soliciting you for advice. I'm soliciting you for it. So he recommended that I call the Actors Fund.
Huh.
And it's called something. It's not called the Actors Fund anymore. It's called something else, and I can't remember, which stinks. But
We'll figure it out and put it up or something.
Seth, Google it. Google it. Now turn on your phone and Google it. And there were resources available in terms of like specifically giving advice for actors.
I had no idea.
And I was so grateful because every other financial planner I talked to, they didn't understand.
They didn't understand.
How much you pay out.
How much you pay out, that
And
we
the
do
corp
taxes in every
aspect of
state,
it.
to
Yeah.
country taxes in different countries. Like, just
that
the
you don't get
tax
paid
law.
in cash. Like when I work overseas, I don't really get paid in cash.
Right.
You get paid in tax rebates.
A lot. Yeah.
But like
right.
if you don't have money to do write-offs, that's hard
It's hard.
because that's not cash.
That's not cash.
You can't
There's
eat
nothing.
rebates.
No, you can't do anything.
And it's a very very, very kind of specific thing to our industry, and there's very few people who have expertise in this area.
Yeah.
And so being able to go to the Actors Fund and be like, how do I build a retirement? How do I how do I do this? How do I do this? Because it's like not, the profit margin isn't working out after you've paid for the publicist and the business manager and stylist and
the price of living and
Yes,
everything else on
and
top of it, and
childcare,
childcare and all of these things. Yeah.
And you never, it's like, it's not a complaint. It's a question.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm complaining. It's like, I really want to know like how to do this.
Yeah.
And they gave incredible advice.
Really, that's surprising. I don't know what. There you go.
Entertainment Community Fund.
Thanks, Seth.
And it's also it's also a fund. It's also a fund. So folks, I didn't utilize it for this, but folks can go there if they're in need.
You can take a loan.
And you can take a loan. And
Interesting.
And I should say this because it's very important. The way in which the Entertainment Community Fund works is that, you know, if you're getting helpful advice from them, if they've served you in some way and you're flush with cash, like give back.
Give back.
And that's I was kind of amazed that everything was free, but I wasn't gonna, you know what I mean? I was like, oh my God, this is this should be available to someone else. And,
Yeah.
you know, thanks for the advice. And it worked out, and, you know, that. And so it's something that I hope just folks, I just want people to have more access to all these wonderful resources that are out there. Because when I first started looking, I thought that there weren't resources. I assumed that there weren't resources.
Yeah.
I was like, no one's thinking about this. And then I was like, oh, like everyone is thinking about this and working really hard to create stuff, but 4 people show up.
Yeah, exactly. When 90% of our unions need it, you know, at any time.
And would love it. And it's like, who do we blame for that? It's not their fault. Like, what are they supposed to do? Spend more money on marketing?
I know, exactly. Well, exactly. Like they can't market for the free thing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So it's any way that kind of information could be sort of like organized. That's what I'm focusing on at the moment.
Which is amazing. And I love that because it's already helped me. Your writings have helped me already, which I really appreciate it. I love it.
But it's really, really, there are so many great artists who we're not getting to see their work. We're not getting to see their work because they're not making it.
Because they can't find that in.
And it's not their fault.
No.
It is not their fault at all. And what's like, people don't know what's normal. I remember this was a huge moment for me when I was 16 years old and I had just gone to Stage Door Manor, and my grandparents were actors, and my grandmother could see that I was like interested in doing it, getting the bug. And she would bring me to, she would take these cold reading classes in Burbank. And so she would take me to like her cold reading like audition
Yeah.
workshops and classes and everything. And I was always like, oh, this is so great. So for my 16th birthday, they took me to Vegas and I could walk the
Amazing.
floor in Vegas. And my grandmother was like using the like nickel slot
The
machine.
slots.
And I was just standing there. And she said to me, she goes, do you know how many auditions the average working actor goes on before getting a job?
Someone told me 50.
64.
Yeah.
So that's the average working actor. Now that was at that
At
time,
that
and it
time.
might be 1 in 50 now.
Yeah.
But one thing to thank streaming for.
Yeah.
But it's the average working actor, which
Yeah.
means that you're making at least $20,000 a year acting,
But that's not normal.
which is not normal.
Right.
So for the person who's making zero,
Yeah.
what's normal? So my grandmother, she was an actor. She left acting to focus on the family. And then when she was in her 50s and early 60s, she started acting again. And
Interesting.
she, in her head, she worked out that because she hadn't been acting for so long, that it's really not going to count until she gets to 100 auditions. And then she can really start like paying attention.
Right.
And so she counted and she got to 100,
Yeah.
still no job. She started over at 1. And before it got to 64, she got a job. And then she
It's
got like
amazing.
a really great run of gigs where she was like and this is how she would describe herself. She would just be like, oh, I'm cast as the little old lady, you know, and it was a very powerful thing because when I first started auditioning, I got my my agent. I'll just tell this story really quickly.
Yeah. Of course.
It's kind of fun and weird. So when I was living in New York, it's very expensive to live in New York. And one of my friends was a stage manager at a show at a place called the Duplex, which is it's like a incredible historic gay bar and cabaret on the corner of Christopher and 7th. And there was a show, a 70s review show called Foxy Ladies, that my friend was the stage manager for. And this was freshman year of college.
I was going to say, I feel like I remember this, and I lived in New York in 2001.
This was then.
Yeah. So
this was then. We got, it was only supposed to be a few weeks and it got extended for 9 months.
Yes.
No, when I say we, I feel like immensely proud. Like I was the person who did it. Just wait till you hear what my job was.
Squeezing orange juice?
So not squeezing orange juice. So I had a weird dorm room situation.
Okay.
And couldn't afford housing that wasn't a dorm room situation.
Okay.
And my friend had a couch and she was the stage manager and she would tell me every day how she just needed an assistant. She needed a dresser. She needed a dresser. She can't do the stage managing and be the dresser. And so I was like, could I live on your couch if I was your dresser? And she said yes.
I love that.
And so I lived on her couch and for a long time. My husband met me there at the apartment.
I was going to say, I thought that you lived with were you and your husband roommates or at college?
That was my writing partner was roommates with Seth.
Copy that.
Who then I introduced to my sister and they got married.
Yes.
And they have 3 kids now.
Copy that.
So it's all very connected.
It's all very connected.
So I was the dresser for this show. And at the end of Foxy Ladies, we would pop our heads out. They'd be like, and thank you to our stage manager and dresser. And I would pop my head out and wave.
Yeah.
And I had like a boa on. One of the performers had someone who worked at their agency who was an assistant who loved the show and came to Foxy Ladies again and again and again. And this woman's name is Meredith Wechter, and she then became my agent for many years until she became a manager, a very powerful manager.
Very powerful. Yeah. Yes.
And she my name wasn't listed like on the program or anything, and she kept asking, "Who's that girl who pops her head out at the end?
Oh my God, I love this.
Who's that girl? Can you introduce me to that girl?" And so I met her. And you know, it was lovely. And she didn't know that I was like going to school. And I was like, yeah, I'm like in a drama program. She was like, oh, interesting. 'Cause she was sort of like, what do you want to do? Like,
Exactly.
what do you, yeah.
What are you gonna do with it?
Are you like a costume designer?
Yeah.
What do you want to do? And I was like, no, I'm like an actor. And she's like, oh. So then the next year, our friend, Justin
Klosky. I was going to ask when Justin came into the
yes,
picture.
yes, right now. He was working with Meredith at that agency,
Yes.
at Innovative Artists.
Yes.
And he was in a play. We were in a play together, and Meredith came to the play to support her friend.
Yes.
And Meredith waited afterwards and was like, hey, we met. Foxy lady.
Do you remember? I'm the lady.
Now I've seen your work.
Yeah.
I would love to represent you.
Amazing.
And I believe at that time she was either still an assistant or was kind of in the process of transitioning.
Right.
And I was like, oh, an agent. Oh goodness, like
I mean,
I'm
maybe
in
I need one of
school.
those.
What? Like I don't know, because I wasn't exposed to that side of
the industry,
business.
right.
You know, it was really production. It was really the set.
Right.
And so it like took a little while where we were talking. I was sort of like, well, but I don't want to leave school unless it's, you know, something that is like theater.
Right.
And that's ultimately what happened. But,
Yeah.
but to make a extremely long story longer, Meredith, I auditioned for over a year with Meredith while I was still in school and
booked
auditioned
nothing.
rigorously,
Yeah.
booked nothing. She didn't ask me this at the time, but years later, when I did have a career, she said, why didn't you quit? Everyone else would have quit.
Yeah.
Why didn't you quit? And I told her the thing about my grandmother, and I was like, I was counting.
Isn't that
I
so
wasn't
funny?
at 64 auditions yet.
Bryce, I counted too because somebody told me it was 1 out of every 50. So I had a line on my a marker on my wall where I would literally put hashes down. So I didn't take the losses personally because I just knew they were the next one. I just kept going, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. I didn't realize I was building resiliency. I just was keeping going because I knew I had to count more numbers.
And you had perspective
Yeah.
as to what the reality was
Yeah.
versus what the idea is, which is like, oh, I have an audition. It's my moment. I make it. I get it.
Then I didn't get it. Yeah.
And then when you don't get it, you're like, well, that's it.
You're
I'm never gonna work.
broken.
Yeah.
You're broken after that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. I love that.
Yeah. So it's just having that information was golden for me because it completely shifted my mindset and
Yeah.
my attitude around auditioning and the volume of auditions that was required in order to
Right.
work. I was not a good auditioner.
I'm a terrible auditioner.
I'm great now.
Are you?
I'm killer now.
Because so
You too.
I need the Bryce Dallas Howard acting class. Because
Listen,
that is I am shit.
you don't need an acting class.
I am a
sister.
shit auditioner. I am awful. I am just terrible. I get back like notes from the auditioners where they're so excited they want me to book the job.
Oh God. this
They
is so
get the
painful.
tape and they go, well, I don't know. And it goes another direction. And everyone's like, well, how do you work? And I'm like, it's just offers. At this point, I have a
So
career of
frustrating.
offers because I don't book. And especially now that I've got to put myself on tape, I'm my own worst enemy. It's
Well, I was going to
awful.
say the tape thing is really hard. And that's what's so crazy is like auditioning isn't something that's necessarily available to really study a lot.
No,
and that's
it's
like
not.
the biggest thing that you need to be good at.
It is. I was really good at it.
Other than your job.
before.
The biggest thing is to be good at your job, which
right.
you are beyond.
Well, thank you.
I'm having a difficult time believing that you're a bad auditioner.
Well,
I just want to.
I'm a good
let you
auditioner
know.
in the room. But if
Yeah,
I
I
can't
bet
get
you
in the
are.
room,
Okay, that's a different thing.
oh, well, okay.
Of course, you're great in the room.
Well, because they only hire me because they like me. They're like, well, I could have a beer with that girl. Like, she's fun. And then I get the job. Like,
Katie,
that's it. That's
Katie,
how
you're
it
an
goes.
Unbelievable actor.
I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
But it is this. It's very weird, and
Yeah.
it's very unruly, and it is a skill that takes a long time to get good at.
Yeah.
And it's and then sometimes I'm real good at it. Like just wait till my next audition, and then I'll be like, oh God, I'm a failure. You know.
Now, did you audition for The Village, or was that truly that
you are
he
not going to believe this.
saw you?
So I did a series of plays. I did not audition. I
Yeah.
asked to audition. He
Really?
wouldn't let me audition.
Wouldn't let you.
I'll tell you why. So I left school.
We're talking about M. Night Shyamalan.
We're talking about M. Night Shyamalan.
Okay.
Incredible man, started my career
Yeah.
in film. And so I was doing a string of shows. I had left school. I had taken a leave of absence from school. And the last show that I did was As You Like It.
Okay.
And it was at the Public Theater, which is known for Shakespeare. And so, and I was playing Rosalind, which is Rosalind is the female character who has the most lines out of any Shakespearean play.
Yes.
And I got cast last minute because the actor who originated the role, this was like it had been like brought there. It was a show that had existed previously somewhere else. She booked a pilot and she had to go and do the pilot. And so there was a week and a half to learn the whole thing.
That's insane, by the way.
It was insane. And so I did it not well. Okay.
So, which is interesting.
Keep listening.
Okay.
Stay with me here, Katee. Stay with me. Everyone else had done this show. They were so dialed in, and I was not.
Yeah.
And it was a learning curve. And I was 21, and it was very, 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 very hard. And but I was like determined.
Mm-hmm.
And the opening night happened, and I gave the performance, and I knew that it wasn't working. And my friend, one of my best friends, said to me, he waited afterwards, and he didn't say anything to me. And I finally, I was like, so what did you think? So again, this is a character that has the most lines.
Yes.
He goes, you know, when you said, I conjure you? And I said, yeah. He goes, that I believed. And so the next morning I woke up to a review
in
the New York Times that was incredibly fair.
Yeah.
Where they were like, it's a great show. The cast is great. You know, everyone's great. It's so inventive. The director, great. It's a shame about the Rosalind. And I will never forget this. I read that, and I was in my apartment, and I had to walk to a matinee. And I started walking, and it was like, heavy.
Yeah.
And then by the time I got to the Public Theater, I was like so light because I was like, I got a terrible review. That's like one of the worst things that can happen. Like by the New York Times, as a young woman, as the lead. Like
it's done now.
Like, oh my gosh. And I'm, they might fire me, but I actually don't think they will because they know like everyone's trying hard here. And so like, I'm okay. Like I got through that. And I showed up, and everyone was so, of course, sweet and like protective and felt bad. And I was like, listen, no, I'm still getting there. Like, guys, like they were right.
For like a week and a half for them to not have ripped you apart, like to just make it, that was actually really kind that all they said was, you know what I mean?
Oh, geez.
Like if we look at it in like retrospect, you're like, that's actually like, it's a shame about Rosalind.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I was like, I know, like, I was like, oh no. And so it freed me. And suddenly what would have become a very locked in performance, because sort of after like opening day, you're just supposed to kind of lock it in. I was still discovering and playing. And a week into the performances, I looked out in the audience and I saw a man in a white shirt, and it was like, he was like glowing. And I was like, holy shit, that's M. Night Shyamalan. And I walked backstage, and I had this thought, and it was like I'm going to do a movie with him. What? And the performance was good that night.
I love it.
I mean, the performance was kind of outstanding.
Right.
And Knight waited afterwards, and he was like, I would love to talk with you about, like, I would love to like speak with you sometime.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's great.
I know.
Like really nice. Well, not even that. I was just like, thanks. But I wasn't taking it seriously. Like I didn't actually think it would amount to anything, even though I had that fleeting thought.
Yeah.
And the show ended and a few weeks went by. And also while the show had been going, someone who eventually was in charge of As You Like It, the movie that I did with Kenneth Branagh, saw the performance, and someone who eventually cast me in Lars von Trier's movie, which was my second movie. So
all saw that one performance, or just the run.
The run.
Okay.
I got once I got the bad review, I was like, okay, we're gonna figure this out. Like, I don't need to impress anyone anymore. Like, let's get this shit
shame about Roslyn.
Yeah,
Here we go.
exactly. And so I ultimately, ironically, my next 4 jobs came directly from that performance that had only a week prior been panned appropriately by the New York Times. And so it was a big deal. A few weeks later, Knight reached out to my agent and was like, I would love to meet with her. I assumed it was going to be that he was going to ask me questions about how to raise kids in Hollywood. I thought that that's what he was going to.
I love that you, in your mind, were like, this is my expertise.
Yeah.
I understand this.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
I've done this.
Yes. Yeah. They're like, how are you okay? You know what I mean?
You probably write a book, though. That'll be one of the books that Steph finds at some point. It'll be How to Raise Kids in Hollywood by Bryce Dallas.
I mean, my God, truly. And I assumed it was that. And he didn't need to ask that question. They had that all sorted.
Yeah.
But at the meeting, he was kind of sharing with me. And at the time, he was 33 years old himself. And he was sharing with me about, his career and his process. And he was being really vulnerable and really sweet. And I was like, wow, this is what a meeting. What a general. Incredible.
Amazing.
And he reaches into his bag and he pulls out a manila envelope and he pushes it across the table. And he's like, I don't know how to ask you this, but I would love for you to be the lead of my next movie. And I said to him, don't you want me to audition?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no, because if you're not good, they won't let me cast you.
Amazing.
So I did not audition.
He didn't want to take the chance.
He didn't want to take the chance at them saying no.
Amazing.
And it was the fact that I remember at the time when I told my dad what had happened, he didn't really believe me. Meredith, my agent, didn't really believe me. Like, she was like, because I was like, I can't send you the script, but it's a really big part.
It's a part. It's a legitimate movie.
and they're like, yeah. And when folks understood, they were just like, no one does this.
No, it doesn't happen like that.
Knight, talk about someone using their position to lift up someone else.
Right.
And it's, and then on top of it, let me just a little Knight love fest for a second. On top of that, so many things that I have not encountered ever again that were beautiful. He was very involved with making sure that I was paid well.
Really?
Not just on the first movie, but on Lady in the Water.
That doesn't happen. Most creators and most producers and writers and anyone who has anything to do with a movie, like the creator or a project, they don't get involved with business affairs.
They're like, no.
I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't know. They probably have no idea what you're actually getting paid.
Yeah.
Unless it cuts into their budget so much that they're angry.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It was like the opposite of a negotiation. It was like, obviously, minimum wage. What? No, you're going to be number one on the call sheet. And
He's
so
like, no.
We're going to do this because I don't want it. That would be taking advantage. I'm like,
amazing.
What?
Yeah.
Really? I mean, don't get me wrong. It was like,
of course.
Now I know like what it could have been. And that it was like such a huge deal for him to even like $1 more than minimum wage is a giant deal.
Yes,
it is.
Giant because that's
deal.
breaking the studio. That's breaking business affairs.
Totally.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't just $1 more.
Yeah.
He was amazing. And so it was it was a really like that experience on the whole for me. He was incredibly inclusive. He treated me in a very similar way to how I had been treated growing up, in terms of I was allowed to tag along and observe anything that I wanted to. And so the storyboard process, the casting process, I mean, this is unheard of.
It's unheard of, that, especially for someone that's not been in the industry, getting to be involved in all of this stuff is crazy. That doesn't happen.
Completely.
Yeah.
And
it reminds me of Jon Favreau, actually.
It's totally like John. Completely. Completely. Like, welcome. You want to learn? Come here.
Yeah. What's your opinion? I would love to hear what you think about this, because I could be wrong. Like, I love that.
Yeah. And so it was amazing, because he, like, for 6 months in advance of shooting the movie, I was consistently going out to he has like a farm, basically.
Yeah.
And I was going out there and I was rehearsing and getting to understand the movie and his vision. And so by the time I was on set, like, I was prepared.
Right.
I would have
let
been
you in
that way anyway, but he let me in on a level that was so much more than I've ever experienced, even since, probably.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and I've been very lucky, I have to say. Like, I've been so lucky with filmmakers. So lucky.
Yeah. Well, because and I want to go back to that one thing. I don't want to take away from the story, but you said that it always comes down to who your boss is. And do you think that it's because of the tone that M. Night Shyamalan set with letting you in, that it taught you to look for those things in other people?
It's how my dad is.
Yeah.
So, like, that's been modeled for me, definitely. Like, when I did Jurassic, the first AD on Jurassic is this awesome guy, Chris Castaldi, and he's the first AD for like a bunch of giant movies. And I saw him and I was like, I recognize this dude. And I just kept being like, I know his face. And a few days into the shoot, he was like, Bryce, we've actually met before. And I was like, and my brain just did its little like, shh.
That
and
little
I was
thing where you're like,
I was like, Gladstone's. He was a waiter at Gladstone's. He was an incredible waiter.
Fantastic restaurant here at the beach. I love it, by the way.
Very, very good. Peanut floors, very fun.
Peanut floors.
And he was a really, really, really exceptional. And we would always go in there as a family when I was a teenager. And he would remember everyone's orders and all this kind of stuff.
Of course, he's the first AD.
My dad was headed to go and do this movie Ed TV that he did in San Francisco. And he went to Chris and he said, hey man, what's your deal? You know, can you, like, what are you interested in? He's like, oh, actually I went to film school at UCLA. I just graduated last year. But I was like, cool. Do you think you could, like, would you be willing to leave this job for something? He's like, you start this job to leave this job, sir? No, that's for someone who's gone to film school, not for everyone necessarily.
Not for everyone, but yes,
for,
in Los
for
Angeles, the majority.
Yeah.
Yes.
And my dad was like, well, you know, if you want, there's a job waiting for you in San Francisco working in the production office.
Amazing.
And so it was Chris's first job.
Yeah.
And my dad was like, you know, when you see a first AD a mile away.
A mile away.
Yeah.
And you know if they're going to be good.
You're like, that's
that
one
person.
of the greats.
Yeah.
And so it was this amazing thing. They went and did Ed TV. John Schwartzman was the DP for that, who ultimately was the DP for Jurassic as well. And it was one of his first big jobs. And he would always say, your dad gave me this break and I feel so lucky. And so it's like, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Like the only way that you make it is because you get some lucky breaks.
100% true.
And so you better be serving lucky breaks if you're in a position.
I love that.
You know?
But you do that. I feel that in you too. And you're taking that on into other people, which I love.
Also, here's the thing. It's like, it's also never a favor. People are amazing. And you're like, oh my gosh, this amazing person.
Yeah.
Like it's like how all these resources are available. And I had assumed that they weren't, and they actually are. And people are just like, the Academy is just like desperate to support emerging artists, like desperate to.
It really is.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is incredible.
We need a big pool. We need a big pool of creators and artists and everything else. So Jurassic, was that, I know your career is massive, and we could literally spend like hours and hours and hours talking about literally every film that you've done. But Jurassic is a film that was like the number one box office movie of like all time or something.
something,
It's something like that. I mean, it's
Yeah.
massive.
It hit some record.
Some record.
Yeah.
Was that the first time that you worked with like animatronics and like big, huge? Was that weird for you?
Weirdly, no.
Really?
So, I had worked with the whole Legacy team several times.
Really?
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why John, when I got involved in Mando, he was like, okay, you work with baby and see what can happen with baby here, because A, you're a parent, and B, you've like performed with this team before. And so I had on actually as far back to The Village, the creatures.
The creatures.
And then Lady in the Water, that was the Legacy team. Terminator, Spider-Man. Did we have animatronics on Spider-Man? Because we did have animatronics on Terminator. But it was something that I and then of course, like just like growing up, like Willow and like, you know what I mean, like all of those kinds of things that are super.
Did you see the new Spider-Man?
Yes, I just saw it this weekend. It was so amazing.
It's
so amazing.
I love it.
It's so amazing. And
Did you have all the Gwen Stacy
I
feelings?
had all the Gwen Stacy feelings, and I just absolutely loved it. And I was just like, it was genius, you know. It like to just because I in particular know Gwen Stacy's arc, like to have this character where it's like it doesn't work out for Gwen, and like all the other multiverses, it doesn't work out for her,
Right.
and like that's canon, and then breaking it and what it means to. Oh, I just got like chills. Anyway, I loved it. I loved it.
Yeah.
And it's so fun to get to be a part of stories like that, because it's very meaningful to people,
Right.
but also because it requires so many people to achieve it.
Right.
And the kind of the like animatronics, the mix of visual effects, practical effects, you know, like cinema, performance, it's so and so many different kinds of people need to come together in order for it to work.
Make it perfect.
Like it's like engineers and like, you know, artists, and like it's really, really, really amazing when it does all work.
When it works. That's why I tell people that Mando is like, they're always so confused why it takes so long for us to shoot and why the episodes are in their minds so short. And I'm like, there are so many moving parts to this that you have no idea. We're lucky that we finish as fast as we do. We're rushed all the time. And the fact that we finish is crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Truly.
It's are you your Gwen Stacy
Wait, but
role?
can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I have all these questions that come up in my mind, and I'm like, am I allowed to ask Katee a question? So for you, I'm just so curious because I haven't worked in TV, and I'm told that this is like in some ways a normal TV process, in some ways not. Like what have you found in terms of what's typical and what's not?
So the biggest difference for me, I mean, budget is massive.
Mhm.
Budget is completely different. I've never worked on something with a budget this big. I mean,
Right.
I literally, our catering budget is probably the entire budget of Battlestar Galactica. Granted, that was 20 years ago, but the biggest thing is that most episodes of television that I am used to shoot in 8 days. 8 days. It is so fast, and you get 2 to 3 takes, and that's it. So when I came in, it was
I'm like, not my medium.
No.
Yeah.
It is. I used to be told, they used to joke and call me the one take wonder, because I would know exactly what I was going to do. I would have it all planned. I would know the story. And yes, I would fly by the seat of my pants through like inside that box, but I knew that I had 1 or 2 takes to get it perfect. And that was it, from every angle, mind you. But so when I got to Mando, and on day 1 with you, where for God love you, the amount of takes you do is like my bread and butter. I think that we got to like take 3, and I was convinced that was it, because that's my experience. There are times we did 38 takes of one scene.
Mm-hmm.
Like that is legitimately the opposite of what I'm used to.
Yeah.
And so it gives you so much time to find everything. And I'd never done that before. That was
Do
so
any
nice.
other directors?
Some do,
that, though?
yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Some do,
That's
but I
cool.
love it. I absolutely love it. And because it gives me the ability to find different things inside of what I thought. And then sometimes you get so over it that you give a different performance. You're like, oh my God, that I didn't expect that. And that wouldn't have come without me completely abandoning everything that I'd already done or thought I knew, or, or even sometimes just the, exhaustion of going up and down stairs peppered your next take and
Yep.
made it something different. And I love that too.
Yep. Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing.
Well, I just know how I feel when I feel like, oh, there was still more in me and I didn't give it.
That's the worst feeling ever.
It's the worst
to
feeling
go
ever.
home and not feel like you left it all out on the floor.
And it was just because the director was happy.
Wouldn't let you.
They either wouldn't let you or they were happy.
Or they were happy.
It's great.
And then sometimes when they're happy and you're not, and you're like, oh,
yeah.
maybe what I think I do well, I don't do well.
Yeah,
well,
that's
my own
a whole other
head.
thing.
That's a whole other thing.
Do we, I don't know if I'm ever going to direct myself, but
Would you?
I don't know. Like, I just don't know, but it would be very hard.
Yeah.
And, I'm not drawn to it.
Okay.
I'm not like, I want to do that.
I don't know if I could do that.
And I wonder how accurate my perception is of myself versus the reality.
You'd need Seth on set.
Yes. No, but that's what we've discussed.
Yeah. You would literally need your husband there to tell you if you have an accurate perception of what just happened.
Do you know what's really interesting about the takes? Because I really like to sort of state assumptions and then analyze it and like get some real numbers behind things.
Right.
Where I'm just like, I think it's this, but let's actually look at it. Let's look at the numbers, kind of like the auditioning
Right.
thing. And so I the last few seasons I've been tracking where in the like take process the majority of the takes that
you choose.
Oh
my God.
And it is typically either the first
Yeah.
or the last.
Shit. You know what's interesting? That makes complete sense to me. To me.
And then all the stuff in the middle, usually there's like so much connective tissue editorially that you need that you don't have, that you only realize after the fact. And so if you, I don't want to say overshoot, but if you get options for entrances, exits, like I'll be like, can you just adjust this little thing with blocking? It just gives like get out of jail options that are very, very helpful editorially.
Yeah.
But usually in terms of performance,
Yeah.
it's usually like sometimes it's the second take.
Yeah.
But usually it's not, because so for me, I try to not give any direction until 3 takes in.
Because you want them to get it out of their systems and give you what they think they
I don't want to get in their head.
Yeah.
I don't want to get in anyone's head. I don't want anyone
Love
doing
that.
something to please me. I want them to be just pleasing their own instincts. And so it's like the first 3 takes, let's just see. Let's just see what happens. And I had more clarity around that after working with Sam Rockwell.
Yeah.
Because I saw how
about him.
like inventive he was and how much he would discover while he was acting, as opposed to having like planned in advance.
Yeah.
And so it's like just having a little bit of freedom. And then it's like, okay, so we have 3. Now we have our options. And what I like to do before saying anything, if possible, is to be like, do you want to look at it? Do you want to look at the screen?
Yeah.
And some people don't want to look at it. Some people do. And I find that usually what happens is this. It'll be like, yeah. And then I won't say anything. They'll look. Okay, I know what I have to do.
Yeah.
Like, it's like they instantly see it.
I literally feel like you just like mimicked what I do when I work with you. Oh,
Good.
I see now.
I got it. Okay, cool. Like, and I don't even say a word. And then what's cool is then it's like your drum solo. It's not me being like, do it like this. Like, it's like you're in flow, you're doing your thing. And then I can just kind of come in there and just be like, try one like that. How about like that?
You're like tapping the pot on the wheel.
Yeah. And it's more this kind of a thing as opposed to like, I'm going to create this. Like, it's just kind of bringing it in. Dave Filoni, I recorded a session with him, which you are all too familiar with.
Yes.
I only had one. You've had zillions for over a decade. And he said something. I just found the way that he directs to be really beautiful and very special, I think.
Right.
He's someone that I look to be like, the way that he articulates things. I also think that Fav is really good, like in the moment, like getting you like going in the headspace.
Fav is really, really good at finding new ways to sort of like have you try different things. He's like this.
It's as
he
if
finds
this.
Thing.
As if this. You're at the bar and the guy and then the wife looks at you and you know.
You've been there.
Like
We've all been there. Do that.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And so it's been wonderful to watch both of them with actors. I have seen Dave a little bit more because John, like he'll step in there, but he's also very respectful of the kind of the director that's there and all of that.
Yeah.
And Dave, I said to him, I was like, can I like ask you some questions, basically how you do this? And he said that he strongly believes that the best version is not the version that's in his head. The best version is what is going to come out in the session.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not something for him to dictate. It's something for him to discover. Beautiful. And so he really doesn't come in there. And to do that also, like as an animator, someone who controls every single element to free yourself of that is powerful.
It is powerful. It's a metaphor for life too, right? In that sense that we always, we try to dictate where things are going to go. And the moment we let go, it's much more beautiful. And
I'm so into watercolor painting.
I know you are. I see it on your Instagram all the time.
So into it.
But you're also really good at it. I mean, like my talent stops at acting.
No.
It's true. You are showing me your curated good ones on Instagram.
Yes. Yeah. You're not seeing the volume. Katee, you're not seeing the volume.
Really, sheer volume.
Sheer volume. Seth? Sheer volume. I probably do 8 paintings a day.
I love it.
I'm obsessed. And I'm learning fast.
Yeah.
Because, you're practicing. Right. But it's what I've exposed maybe 5.
Yeah, you have. But it's meditative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I can't wait I'm going to text you all the real stuff.
Please do. And I'll send you my pots.
I just posted like the flowers. I've just posted like the flowers and stuff. But the real stuff is wild. The real stuff where you're like, I'm just going to let myself do whatever. I'm not going to try to do something. It's really fun. And I've never had a hobby. I've always said, I don't have hobbies. I'm into movies.
I've never had a hobby either because I'm like, my hobby is my job.
Yeah.
Sadly. And also beautifully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You also are the mother of a very young child.
I am so tired.
Like how? Yeah. You can't.
I'm so tired. And I have help. Like, I don't know how people.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, being a mother and raising a family and a father, being parents is so hard. And I have so much kudos to people that make it work any way they do and what works for them. But God help my nanny. She is a godsend, and my husband is a godsend, and I couldn't do it without him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that I know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I took up a hobby.
It's super humbling, isn't it?
So humbling.
Where you're like, oh, wow, every single human being on earth does this, and I'm not capable.
I can't do it. I can't do it.
And
I don't
yet
know.
You do.
And some people do it with 8.
Yeah, I know.
You know what I mean? Like some people do it with multiple children and work a full-time job every day.
Mm-hmm.
I have 8 months off, and I still need a nanny because I just can't do it.
But it's not your fault,
no.
Katee. We're told that it's possible, and actually it's impossible.
Yeah.
And these folks who are doing that, it's under profound strain and duress, and it is out of survival.
100%. Absolutely.
It's like everyone needs support in raising people, in raising human beings.
It's such a luxury to sit here and say that I've taken up a hobby because I have the time to go make pots And that is 100% a
Wait, but you make
luxury.
pots?
Oh yeah.
Oh, but you
Not
have a
well.
hobby. You
I
have
have,
a hobby.
oh no, I took up a hobby because I was like, I don't have a hobby. I need a hobby. And I was going to put one of my pots here to put the mince in. But I've just glazed it and it wasn't ready.
Oh my God, I love this.
It's so bad. And I'm so excited to put it there because it is so accurate to who I am as a person. Like I'm really good at, like, I let it, I just, my technique is not there, but somehow it's a pot.
Listen,
It's there.
that's all it has to be.
That's all that matters.
That's all that's required.
That's all that's required.
And how do you feel while you're doing it? Like, what's the experience?
It is the
for you?
most freedom I've ever had in my entire life. I
Yeah.
love it so much. I also love talking to you. I could literally talk to you. We've been here like an hour and a half.
Oh no, it's so great.
I could
love
talk
it.
to you for absolutely ever.
I mean, same. I'm always like on set. I'm always like, oh, stop bothering
Stop.
Katie.
Oh,
like,
no, but
it's
that's
like,
how
it's
I
like, stay away
feel.
from the actors.
Well, okay, so if this podcast doesn't miserably fail, we'll have you back because
Oh
there's
my
so
God,
much more I want to
please.
talk to you about. I wanted to talk to you about Black Mirror, and I wanted to talk to you about The Help, and I wanted to talk to you about like absolutely a 50-50 and like Jurassic.
all those
I mean, there's
things,
so
all
many
those
things, and we didn't even
things.
get into it, but I love it
Not
just
at
the same.
all. No,
So-
I mean, and I just like every single thing. I'm like, oh, I just want to ask Katie about this. And when it came to the TV thing, I'm like, enough is enough. I have no expertise in this area. Katie, what
It's
is
true.
it? What's
It is
the
my
deal?
bread and butter. I feel like there are times where I'm like, I have so many hours of television. Like I could be a first AD at times. Like, but you know,
Yeah, well,
but no.
there's an ease that you have, and I was actually very surprised when you told me that you like that you weren't technically like you didn't go to school, like a drama school or drama
No.
program or anything
Yeah.
like that. Like you started working.
I started working and I ended up on set at 17 and that just became my school. And I just listened to people and took advice. And I mean, I was working with Eli Wallach when I was 20, Peter O'Toole, Ann Johnson, like, I mean, Richard Dreyfuss, Marcia Gay Hart. Like I was working with amazing people when I was so young and they forced me to learn.
Yeah, because you're incredibly versatile, and you're also like you're like, what is it? Not tools. You can withstand anything. You don't get like ruffled. You don't like you don't choke. You don't choke ever.
Yeah.
You don't.
Yeah.
Like you show up and you deliver in a way that is at a very exceptional, like an extremely exceptional level. And so yeah, I was like, oh my God, no, I assumed that like, like it's like, yeah, like a background like Juilliard or something like that, because it's really, I mean, it's not like you're talking like that or anything or being like, oh, my objective and my action, blah, blah, blah. But it's a skill level, and I think it is. I mean, going back to sheer volume, it's when you do something for over 20 years and you're doing it at a level that is like there's a lot of pressure.
There's a lot of pressure to deliver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the leads of shows that go on for a long time.
I know. Look at our faces. For the
Like-
people that are listening, our faces are both terrified.
I've never done that.
It's a lot of work. Yeah.
It's BJ Novak
Yes.
once said to me that doing a movie is like running a marathon. Doing a TV show is like running until you die.
100% accurate. And I have felt like at the end of shows, like I died. At the end of Battlestar, I was on the floor. Like our last night while we were filming, I was on the floor sleeping on a Fernie blanket and my machine gun as a pillow. And someone was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, I'm fine.
You're like, I'm sleeping on my machine gun.
I'm fine. Like, I was like ready to die. I was so tired.
I mean, honestly, I can't even imagine. You were like, the epicness of that character and that story, and also the attention on the series at that moment. Like, it's like one of those things, like, I'll never forget the season finale because it was like, okay, we're all there. My mom, okay, she's in New York, she's
had to
watching.
watch
and
it.
like, we're all like coordinating it. Like it was one of those
TV.
things,
Yeah.
event TV. And it's very rare to be a part of something like that. You've been a part of something like that multiple times. but it's like to be the person, like the actor at the center of it is just, I mean, I've never done it. I've never done it. I can't even imagine it.
Yeah. I don't know if I could do it again. I'm too old for this shit.
I have a question. Did you ask for longer hair or was that like a story choice because there was like a jump in time? Were you like, because it was like gorgeous.
The long hair or the short hair?
I mean, both were great.
So I wanted to cut my hair that short, and I felt very masculine. I was at a point in my life where I was very young, and I associated beauty with long hair, the stereotypical things that we do, the long hair, the perfect body, all of these, like the dewy face and the pouty lips and like all of these things that we're trained to sort of think of. And so I leaned into this really, really short hairstyle. And then I got so much hate off the top of it.
Really?
Yeah, there was a lot of hate about my masculinity and how I wasn't female enough, but I wasn't male enough. And
they just couldn't do push-ups like you could.
Well, there you go.
Jealous.
And I felt so insecure about it that I wanted longer hair. And it came from an insecurity. And then,
that's very
then it gave me a place to go with the character.
It was a really powerful choice as an arc. Like I distinctly remember that and just being like, wait, who is she now? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And leaning in because of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then to have her cut it off again was like really freeing too.
Yeah.
So I took the insecurity and I tried to turn it into a thing. That's one of the things that I'd always done was don't let him see you insecure. Use your insecurity as part of the character, as part of something, and put it on the screen.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I mean, it's the power and nuance of storytelling and to make that choice from that place, but it's also totally the right choice, the exact right, perfect choice. And like, thank God for it. It's really interesting.
My insecurities always put me in the right place.
No, that's amazing. I mean, listen, you gotta listen to your instincts.
And my instincts are insecure.
I mean,
my instincts right now are telling me that we should actually probably, I feel like the poor guys in here are turning bright red because we've been talking for so long. But I really appreciate you coming and being on the podcast.
You're amazing.
And I love everything about you. And I could talk to you forever just because I love you so much.
I love everything
and I feel like
about you.
Every time you open your mouth, I learn more about you, but I learn more about life and the industry and everything else. So I thank you so much for coming.
Oh my gosh, thank you, Katee. I
appreciate it.
I so appreciate you. And I feel so seen by you and supported by you. And I feel like I can just be myself and vulnerable and, mess and whatever. And we'll get to that bar class.
Oh my God. One of these days we'll get to a bar class.
But now I know, like, I just need my loops in my ears because I get really overwhelmed.
Do you with the noise?
Yeah.
No, I completely understand that.
Yeah.
You guys, thank you for listening. I appreciate you very much. Like, subscribe, do whatever, subscribe. You know what I mean. Just
all of that.
All of it.
Do all the things.
Do all the things. Bryce.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. So good.
Ha 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 ha!